Great. Okay. All right, here we go. Hi, everyone. As Diana said, I'm Mary Willoughby. Typically over the Digital Library of Georgia. I'm also the sort of managing day-to-day person for ScholarWorks. So ScholarWorks is our institutional repository here at the University of Georgia. And oh, there's my first slide. And you may have previously known of our institutional repository, Athenaeum. ScholarWorks is a rebranding essentially of that, and it's been a continuation of a project that started probably about 10 years ago on a very different platform, but we have moved it to a more contemporary repository platform with a much fuller feature set, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that today. So the main homepage is exploro.live.uga.edu. We probably will get a sort of vanity URL at some point for that, but for now, you can find it there. And hold on, I'm going to put a clock on myself so I don't run over. So I invite you to go there, take a look around when you have a chance, and you can try some of these things out for yourself. So if you go to that URL, you get to the home page, which is this right here, and you can see it's a little bit no frills at this point. We're hoping to do a little more decoration later, but basically you have your search box, your primary search box. It's sort of a multi-search kind of idea. It searches everything in the repository, and it includes things, as it says on the front page here, UGA ETDs. It has research that has been individually submitted that is actually held sort of within our Esploro instance proper. Esploro is the platform that we use for this product. And so it also contains work that is in other repositories, other databases that gets sort of drawn in. So it's a much bigger body of work that we have now representing UGA's research output. But the core of it, and what I want to talk to you about really today, is the work that is generated by our research community that is deposited sort of directly so that we maintain those assets, as a commitment on the part of the UGA library. And that's sort of what we see as one of the core functions of this, is to assist our research community with ensuring the sustainability of their work, so that we can do some of that heavy lifting for you. You don't have to worry so much about, the maintenance of the metadata that, you have a drive that goes out, you spill your coffee on your laptop, any of those things that can happen. This is sort of, it's an extra layer of security to make sure that research can stay viable over time. One other thing to note about this repository is that, unlike a discipline-specific repository, which I'm sure some of y'all are very familiar with and probably contribute to, this one is cross-disciplinary, and the sort of guiding principle is the representation of the whole university's sort of collective research and creative scholarly output. So you can do a basic search here, you'll see, and then if you do the click down, you'll see that there also are a few options to limit with here right off the bat. Dissertations and theses are some of the most popular things that people look for. And so you can go immediately and do some searching there. This will give you access to not only the ETDs from approximately 1999 that were done in a sort of an older repository system. It also gets the most current set of ETDs that have, anything that's been released by the graduate school. As soon as it is released, essentially it shows up in this in ScholarWorks. And at some point I'm going to call this Athenaeum again, and I apologize. Just know that it's a very recent name change, and it is in fact now ScholarWorksUGA. So if you do a quick, simple search, say water quality, you'll get basically a results list, and then faceting along the left side, which probably looks pretty familiar because it has a lot in common with our main library system. And so you have some, there's some continuity of how the features work there. You can facet according to any of these items on the left side. These will vary according to what kind of information we have about the items in the results list. Then another very powerful way to use the repository is this departmental or unit browse. You can see up here at the top, you just select this. You'll get this drop down or this list of different organizational units. And then from there, you can sort of drill down through the facets and go to a particular department or sub-department. And then within that, you'll get a list with the results for everything that is affiliated with that department. And then again, on the left side, you can see you have facets that you can use to sort of sift through those results and drill down to what it is you're looking for. Typically, that includes, you can't really see them all here, but you usually have some author-creator facets, you have date facets, subject faceting, and any sort of additional organizational unit facets that show up there also. And then if you pick one of the results, here you can see sort of a view of a full record where you see all the metadata for that item. In this case, you can see also there is a handle, a persistent identifier associated with this. We do support pretty much any persistent identifier scheme that you can think of as far as making it accessible within the system so that it can be viewed and used. We do not support the registration of DOIs at this point, but if you have an item that has a DOI, we can certainly include that in the metadata. So really, Esploro, our platform that we use, has a very full metadata set, and that's one of the real advantages of it, because it's very flexible and quite comprehensive. And so there's really probably almost nothing you could throw at it that we could not accommodate in some kind of a way so that it could be associated with your actual files. And then here you see, this would be scrolling down the page. You can just see some more details about this particular item. And then one of the nice features of this platform is that unlike our previous DSpace platform, this has a lot of built-in file viewers. So you don't always have to download a file or rely on those that are available in your web browser. So this is the onboard PDF viewer, which is, commonly that's what people submit. But that's not to say that you can only submit something that's PDF. The repository is actually format agnostic. So pretty much any file that you have that you need to put somewhere, we can host that. The only thing is that for most of your major, relatively common file types like PDF, Excel, Word documents, basic video types, those can be displayed within the browser sort of view while you're in the repository. Anything that there's not an onboard viewer for is available as a download. So we can still make those files available. It may just be a little less shiny for the end user. And then here you can see, if you click the share button, you get a nice little widget kind of thing. I don't know if they still call them that or not, that gives you social media sharing options, and then also whatever the sort of persistent identifier of record is. And here, as I said before, it's a handle style identifier, but there is also, even if you don't have some outside identifier associated with an item, one will be assigned that can be reused and that will be maintained as part of UGA Library's commitment to maintaining this item over time. So we would commit to sort of maintaining those links and migrating them if necessary because of like a platform change or an upgrade or something like that. And here you can see there's another button where you can export an asset, and this gives you the option to email things, print things, and then you have a number of citation styles and other sort of ways you can interact with the citation data for an item, all of which is generated based on the metadata that's associated with the item in the repository. So that's a really quick sort of overview of the basic features of the ScholarWorks UGA platform. And we feel like it's a much more dynamic system than we've had in the past. Our previous repository, it handled PDF well, but it didn't allow nearly as much access to metadata. The search feature was not nearly as well developed. So we feel like this is a big upgrade. It is a little more complex in that it is drawing in these different sources of data, so it's a little bit more of a sort of homogeneous kind of, you know, world in there. But that gives you a lot of power to sort of get a broader overview of the sort of cross-disciplinary research that goes on at UGA and the kind of, you know, both the breadth of our research community and also, you know, the extent of the different types and you know, the sort of creative ferment of the university. So why should you participate? And I think the biggest reason, you know, really is our commitment to sustaining and preserving these assets over time. One of the biggest reasons that institutional repositories were developed was because there was this problem with things that might not be a great fit for a subject repository, you know, because some of them are a little more specific as to the kinds of assets that they're looking for. Whereas we intentionally cast a really pretty broad net, and I'll drill down a little bit more into that later, but we're really looking for anything that is sort of scholarly in nature, that has enduring value, that we want to maintain as sort of part of your research footprint. So that's not necessarily a finalized article or anything like that. It could be a data set, it could be a white paper, it could be a working paper, it could be, you know, teaching objects, learning objects, you know, things like that. Another good reason is that now there are a lot of sustainability requirements associated with grant funding and some sort of you know, kind of contractual obligations that you can get into. And so this, in many cases, can be a way to help fulfill those requirements. It's not, you know, it's not the only thing that that might entail, but it certainly can be a piece of it that we want to make available as, you know, as a service to our research community. ScholarWorks is also indexed in Google Scholar. We don't have any control over, you know, that crawl or when it happens, but really pretty quickly, your work, if you put it in ScholarWorksUGA, it will sort of start to filter out to the internet at large, but in a way that maintains that context because of the metadata capability. You know, it's not just like a random file showing up somewhere or something on a website that may or may not have a broken link, or maybe it has a title and nothing else. It's, you know, it's really sort of contextualized with pretty much any metadata you want to accompany it. And then, like I said, we do intend to collect a very broad array of things. So we want sort of the odd ducks. You know, if you feel like it has value, even if, you know, it's you're dancing about math or something like that, you know, we want that. That'd be really cool, actually. So here's a little more about what we're looking for. ScholarWorksUGA, we're collecting peer-reviewed publications, research materials, things created for classes, you know, any kind of creative or sort of hybrid work that you had an interest in preserving. And then also one thing that we're getting increasing requests for that we're very interested in sort of building out our capability to preserve our data sets. At this point, we don't have a specific program of curating data sets, but we certainly can accommodate them. And there's no sort of existing hard limit on file sizes or anything like that. So, you know, while we're not necessarily ready to take on like massive data sets, if you have some, don't feel like that it's not something that we're interested in, because we definitely are. And again, that's even if it's like a CSV file or something more esoteric, we can still present that data as a file, even if there's not a viewer for it. You know, we'll make it available so that people then can download it and reuse it or, you know, inspect it. So the requirements for depositing work. Broadly, it needs to be a product of the UGA research community, and it needs to fit within the collection guidelines of the repository. You have to be willing to make the work freely available online without restriction. You have to either be the creator or the copyright holder, or you have to have permission from the copyright holder to submit the work. We have a deposit agreement that you have to agree to. And basically that says you're granting us a non-exclusive license to present the work online, to publish the work online, and then also to do any sort of transformation necessary to, if we had like an upgrade later or something like that, any sort of migration necessary to continue the utility of that object. And this doesn't preclude any other publication or use of the work. It's completely non-exclusive. It also is in keeping with all of the existing university system intellectual property agreements and things like that. So it doesn't supersede any of that. There's also no transfer of copyright by depositing in the repository. So whoever the copyright holder is continues to be the copyright holder. So if you're interested in this, the first thing to do would be to take a look at our About page, which is linked at the very top of the Esploro homepage. That will take you to a LibGuide that gives you the collection policy and then also the author agreement. And then if you have things that you're interested in submitting, but maybe you're not sure if it's in scope, or you feel like you have some questions about copyright, or what your agreement with the publisher is, if you have the right to self-archive. Marianne Samuel is the contact person for that. She's the head of scholarly communication, copyright and science collections, and she will be happy to sort of walk you through the questions that need to be answered before you can submit to the repository. If you have sort of technical questions or something more general, you can always email that Athenaeum help@mail.lives.uga.edu link. That will essentially go to me, and it is the old Athenaeum help email, but it is monitored still, and it's still the way you can get information or assistance. Also, just wanted to put in a quick word about ORCID. I don't know if some of y'all probably already have ORCID IDs, but if you do not have an ORCID ID, you can register one as part of the submission process, as part of sort of setting up your account in ScholarWorksUGA. And what an ORCID ID is a persistent, unambiguous identifier for you as a researcher. So if your name is, Sally Jones, and there are 100 other Sally Joneses in Georgia doing research on whatever you're doing, it will specify you as that Sally Jones, and it will travel with you sort of throughout your scholarly career, regardless of what organization you may be affiliated with. And so it's a good way to make sort of your identity as a researcher more robust. And it really helps a lot with sort of next generation online environments like Esploro, because it disambiguates you from, everybody else of similar name out in the world. So with that, we have some time left over for questions, and we can take a quick tour and look a little more at that About page and our deposit agreement. Let's see if this is going to work. Can y'all still see that? I'm hoping that's a yes. So this is the LibGuide for ScholarWorks, and you can see here, first thing is this About document. This is basically our collection policy, and it gives a little bit of background on sort of the legal context of the institutional repository project and idea, and it explains a little bit more about how that works in keeping with other university policy. And then the other really important thing to take a look at is the author deposit agreement, which, as I said, is completely non-exclusive and really just covers our bases and gives us the permissions that we would need to maintain that work over time. So that I'm going to stop sharing for a minute here. There we are. All right, anybody have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I'm wondering what are the differences between ScholarWorksUGA and UGA elements?
Okay, that's a great question. Well, for one thing, UGA elements is really pretty limited to what I believe. Now, I do not use elements extensively, and I'm not the expert here, so anyone who knows more than me, feel free to chime in. But elements is basically sort of collecting a more specific set of information about you as a researcher. And it's mostly citation based, and I think there's some ability to upload like actual objects, but not nearly as extensive as ScholarWorks. Unfortunately, right now, there is not an integration between ScholarWorks and UGA elements. We're kind of hoping it's on our perpetual wish list that maybe one day that'll happen, but quite frankly, they're different vendors and I doubt it. But ScholarWorks is a much more robust system that's really more oriented towards keeping those assets in the context of all of the metadata about the thing, not just sort of associating them with you as a researcher. So it's really a much fuller sort of environment for your work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for the sharing today.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, I'm curious about whether you can upload video files.
Yes, you absolutely can upload video files. Now, I think it depends on what type of file it is as to whether or not it can be viewed natively in like a browser window within the platform, the Explorer platform that we presented on. But even if it can't be, there's always the possibility of uploading the file and then having it available for download. So yes, we definitely are interested in video.
Something like YouTube video would work?
Well, now YouTube video, since that's a streaming video, we could not upload, we could upload like an MP4 file that you might also upload to YouTube. But we could link to a video outside, but what we would really want is to have that file itself that we could upload to the system, so that way, if YouTube changes their policy suddenly, and decides that video is not what they want to have anymore, or maybe even YouTube goes away, which seems kind of unthinkable right now, but certainly has happened to other, large scale platforms before on the internet. Then we would still have that, and so it would still be available.
Right. Okay. I understand.
Yeah, and there's also the possibility if you have assets that are, in other systems that maybe for whatever reason we can't ingest, or you don't have the agreement to ingest those, but they're related to an item that you do have in Explorer, there's extensive capability as far as creating relationships in that record. So that then you have a linkage to that, and that people can go out and find those other things that are related objects.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We've got 8 minutes. I always talk faster than I think I'm going to talk. So if there's anything that I skipped over or you have any questions about, don't hesitate to follow up with an email. I know sometimes I'm in a session and the question doesn't occur to me until 5 minutes after, but I would be very happy to answer via email if you have anything else. Well, thanks everybody. I appreciate everyone attending. I hope that we can help you make your lives easier. I know you have a lot of things to keep juggling as a researcher, and with all of the work that you do. So hopefully this is sort of one area where we can help.